So here's a few tips on designing a Marine Pure Refugium sump. So the first thing we need is inlet holes. So we'll use some strainers plumbed into the back of the aquarium. This is the neatest way, I reckon. I'm not a big fan of weirs because they take up room in the actual fish tank themselves. And so the water comes out of the strainers. The hole's drilled about 5 centimeters from the top. The larger the hole, the more water the hole can take. We usually go for a 50 or 60 mil hole. Then we will use 50 or 40 mil plumbing. Then we basically plumb that down to a couple of elbows, which just return the water into the inlet of the filter, which we put some polyfilter, because we find polyfilter to be by far the best mechanical and chemical media. And the advantage of polyfilter is it clings particles, not traps them. So unlike filter socks and normal filter wool, it doesn't clog up. So therefore we find that you can run polyfilter for literally months without it clogging up, and because it takes all the organics out of solution, we find that we just get much better results from it. It doesn't remove trace elements, and unlike filter wool, with filter wool, the more often you replace it, the better. The more effective it is, and the less likely it is to clog up. Whereas the polyfilter clings the particles so it doesn't clog up, and it removes organics out of solution. So the water comes down through here. Then we have Marine Pure. So the Marine Pure is literally just sitting in the bottom of the sump, and the water needs to be able to freely move around the sump, around the Marine Pure, because the bacteria on the outside of the Marine Pure needs to absorb the nutrients. So ammonia, then into nitrite, then into nitrate, and then nitrate gets broken down into nitrogen gas. And it must be passive, it mustn't be forcing the water through it, so you can form the anaerobic zones that are inside. So Marine Pure comes in blocks. You just throw the block in the bottom. Then we'll just have a return pump. The return pump will shoot the water back up into the top of the aquarium again. And we're making sure that where we're returning the water, we're trying to get as much surface agitation as possible and as much gas exchange as we can. So for a typical system, we'll usually have 2 inlets, 2 outlets, 2 bits of polyfilter, 2 Marine Pures. You can put the heater down there as well. And then the other thing to know if you're setting a system up is to make sure that you fill the aquarium up so there's a bit of water going down to the sump. Then stop filling the aquarium up and fill the sump up to near the top. Then turn your pumps on, and that's going to pump the water from the bottom to the top, and that's going to make your water level in the sump decrease. When the water level in the sump decreases, you then mark it. For example, let's say the water level's there, and you write on. And then the key is never to fill up the sump above the on level if the system's running. Otherwise, when you turn the pumps off and the water comes from the bottom back up again, then that will overflow this. And to make sure the outlets of the pumps are not lower than the hole, because you don't want that to back siphon down past the holes. So we find that this design is extremely simple and extremely effective. So with this sort of system, you can run very low water changes. So everyone's got their own opinion on water changes, so just experiment yourself. But if you were busy or you just didn't have time to do regular water changes, we find that these systems work extremely well, because you've got the polyfilter exporting any sort of accumulants out of the aquarium. You've got Marine Pure, which is offering you parallel nitrification and denitrification. The Marine Pure also builds up masses of microorganisms in amongst it, so acts as a refugium, which basically just means safe place. The other thing that we do tend to run with this system is a protein skimmer, and so if you're going to run a protein skimmer, there's always plenty of room in this sump. So if you just install the protein skimmer, and you can just hang it on the side of on the back of the unit without a problem. And the other advantage of having a protein skimmer is that then you can run NOPOX, NPX, which is a Red Sea product, and we find that's quite effective. What that actually does is introduce enzymes and catalysts that actually help to break your nitrate and phosphate down. So we find that's quite a good thing. The other thing you can do as well is install some dosing pumps. So if you had your bottles lined up on the side and then you just install the dosing pumps, then what you can actually do is auto dose the system as well, which is quite handy.